Hi, I'm Scott Fee. Welcome to CHEK Spotlight, a special feature of the Rising Economy 2024 conference, which CHEK is pleased to sponsor from March 6th to 8th in Victoria. Dubbed the Business Conference for Business Insiders, Rising Economy is about shaping our businesses and organizations to succeed in the new economy. Find out more at risingeconomy.com. Well, today, CHEK Spotlight features Robert Barnard, Executive Director of Youthful Cities, a social enterprising creating solutions to make cities friendlier for young people, in conversation with Ben Wag of South Island Prosperity Partnership. The question: how youth-friendly is Greater Victoria, and how can we improve our region to attract and retain a younger population? Let's find out. Over to you, Ben.
Welcome to the CHEK Spotlight for Rising Economy 2024, the business conference for business insiders. Today, we're sitting down with Robert Barnard, the co-founder of Youthful Cities, for an informative chat about attracting youth to the region. In 2012, Robert co-founded Youthful Cities to amplify the power of urban youth globally. Using his 3 decades of experience in youth engagement and innovation, Youthful Cities focuses on the critical nexus of youth between 15 to 29 years old and cities. Welcome, Robert.
Yeah, great to be here. Thank you.
Great. So to start us off, what is Youthful Cities and why did you start this organization?
I like to think of Youthful Cities as like a think and do tank. So the think part is we collect a lot of data on cities that we think is going to be particularly important for how cities interact with young people. And when I say young people, we look at 15 to 29-year-olds. That's our kind of definition of youth. And as we think about that data set, we want to start to create solutions to make cities better places for young people. So we hope to use that data to tell great stories. We collect and organize young people together to use that data, ultimately to come up with ideas that they think will make cities better places. So Think and Do Tank really focused on using great data to create solutions to make better cities.
Cool. That's interesting. So how do you tailor your strategies to address like the unique challenges of different cities? Like what are some examples maybe?
Yeah, I mean, looking at Victoria, looking at the data around Victoria, for example, is you've got one of the lowest youth unemployment rates in Canada, which sounds great. The problem is you've also got one of the lowest percentages of youth in Canada, which doesn't sound so great. So that's a story, and that's some quick data right there about the unique challenges that a city like Victoria faces, which is, wait, you need a lot more young people, both to service the economy, grow the economy. And the unique challenges is if you have a lot less young people, then that actually makes it tougher for young people to get into that environment. A place like Quebec City has a very low unemployment rate for youth as well, but very different dynamics for that unemployment. So a lot more part-time jobs in Quebec City, a lot cheaper place to live in than a place like Victoria. So it actually requires a unique perspective. Again, just using a couple of quick stats to think about those two very different cities.
Yeah, no, that is interesting how you apply that comparison. So do you have any sort of success stories of where a city did implement changes and improve the quality of life and the opportunities for young people?
I think change takes a long time in cities, as we now well know. So our goal is to get that innovation started. So we've had a few really great successes around, for example, looking at affordability and how do we use information to change policy. We ran a couple of years ago now, we ran an affordability index where we ranked 30 cities across Canada on which city was the most affordable. Turns out there wasn't actually an affordable city for young people in Canada. Yeah, not one. And we looked at a monthly, basically a monthly, money in, money out calculation. And the closest was Lethbridge, Alberta, but it was still a net loss for young people in those cities. That information, though, went directly into the federal government and federal parties. And the NDP actually used that information to call out other governments to say, we really need to do something around affordability for young people. So getting that information into the hands of policymakers is a way to make change. Our summits and our labs that we run at Youthful Cities are meant to create new ideas and get those ideas launched. So we've had ideas around food security, we've had ideas around housing, we've had ideas around emergency preparedness in previous labs. We just ran a lab in Vancouver, and we've got some really interesting ideas we hope anyway, getting launched around getting more women into the construction industry, getting more international students the right kind of housing through almost like a unique mentorship scheme. So the few ideas that are percolating there. Of course, for this particular Rising Economy conference, one of the things I'm really focused on right now is housing, and that's one of the new ideas that we're launching out of Youthful Cities is a housing venture specifically designed for young people in Canada, and there aren't very many of those kinds of ventures yet in Canada, so we're really excited about that.
Yeah, no, that sounds super exciting. So how do these labs work, for example?
The labs work where we generally bring, we've got sort of a bunch of different models, but I'll give you kind of one of them just as an example. So we bring in 30 young people. We put together a 6-week program, so it's not a full-time, but we meet them sort of once a week for an evening a week, and maybe a couple of days on a weekend just to kind of build the momentum with the group. And at the end of that period of time, our goal is to help them develop ideas on a particular theme, and then present those ideas to the community with the goal of having funding ready to go to help them launch those ideas. So some kind of micro grant format. That's when I talked about some of the other examples just before that. Yeah, that was the model we used for those labs.
Yeah. Oh, cool. That's interesting. So what role do you think technology and digital innovation will play in sort of shaping cities to be more youth friendly in the future?
I mean, that's what cities have actually been about forever, right? They're the places where technology gets adopted. They're the places that especially younger generations adopt that technology, create that technology, popularize that technology. So I think that pattern will, it's always been there. So now it's a question of which technologies will be adopted and which technologies will be seen as actually valuable for young people and other citizens moving forward. AI is a big topic, and it's not one technology; it's a lot of different things. So, but we're certainly doing research right now at Youthful Cities, looking at the impact of AI. Is it positive? Is it negative? Are young people seeing that as an opportunity to help them grow, or is it something that they think will take away opportunities in the future? And right now, it's tilting towards, I would say, the positive side, where they think it's likely going to gain some opportunities for them, but we're still in the middle of that research.
Right. That's interesting. Yeah. Definitely a super relevant topic right now. So overall, what do you think youth would need to sort of succeed and thrive in cities currently?
Housing.
Housing. That's the big one.
Yeah, underline. Like everything we're looking at right now says that housing's literally stopping their life right now. That they can't afford it, or they're extending their stay far beyond when they thought they would in family homes. Place like Victoria, UVic is really struggling to get housing for students, and that's just students. Like that doesn't include those who are graduating and want to stay in the city. The housing is the most expensive part of the kind of cost of living for young people right now. And it used to be that you would say, never spend more than a third or 30% of your income on housing. That's being that's really been put to the test. So we're just reviewing this research now, but we looked at, we asked young people if there's one issue that cities should focus on, what is it? And we gave them a bunch of different options around making those cities more competitive around the future work. And our expectation is that, affordability will top the list. And we've asked this question in various ways over the last decade or so at Youthful Cities. We also expect that good jobs will be up there, that climate change will be up there, and health and transportation and everything else. In this particular survey, half of the respondents said it was affordability.
Oh, wow.
Half. The next closest was good jobs at about 13%. Climate change was down at 2.5%. Everything is being dwarfed by affordability, and within affordability, it's housing.
Yeah. That's interesting. And so all those issues kind of like feed into each other a little bit with affordability and housing and jobs and all of that.
Yeah, and on top, I think the affordability crisis is also, from what we're seeing, it's at least correlated that we're seeing mental health rates that I haven't seen before. And again, I've been looking at different, this is the third young generation I've looked at. In the United States, they've basically called it a loneliness epidemic, and young people are the loneliest group in society, which surprises me.
Yeah. Okay. So then from there, I was wondering, what are some of the challenges and opportunities in engaging older populations in creating the vision of a more youthful, sort of vibrant city?
I mean, let me answer that in two ways. There's a general answer to that, and then I'll jump into a specific one. So generally, when we think of a youthful city, we also think of a youthful kind of attitude. And every city can adopt this. And in fact, every person can adopt this. And a youthful attitude, when you ask, as we did at Youthful Cities, given the name, we asked young people to define what youthful means. And they said a youthful city is a city that is curious, connected, open, dynamic, inventive, and playful. So, curious, connected, open, dynamic, inventive, and playful. So those 6 attributes make for a youthful city. Like, that sounds like a pretty cool place to be for everyone, by the way. And I think that's where older populations can really start to embrace it. You think about the opposite of those 6 words, it's actually the opposite of youthful is atrophy.
Yeah.
So if you want a city to be vibrant, if you want the economy to be vibrant, if you want the people to be vibrant going forward, you actually want a youthful city. And those values are most often found amongst young people, but not exclusively. Like, you can have a youthful attitude in your 90s for sure. So what we want to gather people in kind of common purpose around those values. So that's kind of the general piece. I think the more specific one, and I'll go right back to housing, because and I'll be talking about that more at the conference, is, there really isn't a youth housing strategy in Canada, and I don't know that there's really a youth housing strategy on Vancouver Island and South Vancouver Island and Victoria. And yet we want our younger generations to start off well. That seems like a pretty basic concept. If they don't, it just ends up, if one is just pure economics, it costs societies enormous amount if their youth don't start off well. They don't get jobs, they don't get opportunities, they end up depending on the state a lot, and they just aren't able to support an older population, which is obviously we're heading towards. So we want to really focus and make sure that we're supporting young people for all of our benefit, not just for their benefit. Yeah. So, our specifically, I think, support for different types of youth housing models. And when I say youth housing, I mean up into the 20s, right? So that's young professionals, it's graduating students, it's all that group. That's really where older generations can support younger generations, is to kind of help balance that out. Older generations have done extremely well with housing. It's a main part of their investment portfolio. For young people, half of them don't ever think they're going to own a home. So that's a really big generational shift. Older generations are literally, that's the legacy they're giving to younger generations, is basically no hope, which is not what you'd want to give to a younger generation.
No, definitely not. Okay, so in that sense, so what do you think the most effective ways are then for cities to balance the need for affordable housing with the pressures of urban development and the real estate market?
Well, the idea that we're talking about at Youthful Cities is really focused on merging three opportunities. One is we have a real need to keep our downtowns vital. And as young people move out of downtowns and it becomes remote working becomes more popular and more locked in as a norm amongst younger populations, there's a real threat to downtowns to be basically hollowed out, lack of labor force. So that's part one. Part two is that we have a real opportunity to actually create co-living environments for young people. And that's actually maximizing space and giving young people an opportunity to live together, which also helps them out in all kinds of supportive ways, keeps the cost down. And the third one, which is really critical, is, and this is a brand new one, is we have an office vacancy problem. Is that office vacancy rates are through the roof right now across Canada, a little bit less so on the West Coast, but still much, much higher than they ever have been. So that's the solution that we're looking at, is to merge co-living within office, vacant office spaces that is directly focused on housing young people, young professionals in cities to bring young people downtown again. It's funny, a lot of cities used to, have tons of condos downtown, which was the whole strategy around getting millennials downtown.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, Gen Z can't actually afford those condos anymore. So they can't even afford the rent in those condos, let alone to buy them. So that's, the challenge is, we really need that young labor force to be downtown.
Mm-hmm.
And in order for them to do that, we got to find housing solutions. So that's the combo that we're working on right now at Youthful Cities, is merging those three needs.
Yeah, that's really fascinating. So what sort of emerging trends then have you observed in urban planning and city development to attract that sort of young talent downtown?
Well, to some degree, I mean, we're still learning about it. Hopefully Youthful Cities is creating some of those trends as we go. I think there's a little bit of a COVID hangover, as everyone's just trying to figure out what to do next and how to revitalize, and we're kind of throwing all kinds of stuff in there. I think anything that's going to make transportation cheaper to get young people downtown more effectively if they have to live away, anything that's going to open up opportunities for young people to live downtown is going to revitalize that economy. And then just new innovations in housing more broadly is how do we do that? I think we're looking at co-ownership models in the UK that have been starting to gain some traction. Certainly co-living is something of a model that's much more well adopted in Europe and Asia than it is in North America. We're kind of very focused on single family homes in North America. So that's something that we're looking at and particularly focused on.
Yeah. Cool. So, looking ahead, what are the long-term goals of Youthful Cities, and how do you envision it sort of evolving over the next decade, let's say?
Yeah, in some ways, a little bit more of the same. If we want to be that think and do tank that helps to take data and turn it into solutions, we want to do more of that. And I think we will do more of that. We're doing a large project right now around the future of work that's funded by the government of Canada. We actually just finished a summit also funded by, I see one of your sponsors, RBC, has helped us in looking at the future work, and we've been working with them for the last 5 years on some of those topics. So I think for us, it's continuing to gather really strong and useful data, and then turning it into stories, using those stories to gather people and generate new solutions. We're likely going to start kind of focusing on particular issues where we think we can have the biggest impact. So the housing is obviously, as you can hear by this interview, is a real focus for us right now. I think, we're still going to look at mental health. I'm personally worried about the decline in interest in climate change amongst young people from the data that we're seeing. And so that's something that we want to have a look at going forward as well. But in the short term, housing, that's really where we think the leverage is for cities if they can figure it out. And it'll take political will, it'll take community will. So I don't know what the opposite of NIMBYism is, but whatever that is, that's what it's going to take. And it'll take the will of young people as well. Like they need to also be thinking creatively about how to create great living situations for them. That's going to help them move forward.
Yeah, that's
so
interesting.
For the next year or two, it's going to be focused on I think housing is going to be a big issue for us in the future of work. But as time goes on over the next decade, we'll use this model to take on other issues as well.
Oh, okay. So if you do want to get involved with housing or affordable housing, what are some steps they could take?
Yeah, just call us, jump in,
Call
join
Youthful
us.
Cities.
Yeah. I think, yeah, one is to be more active and vocal about the challenge, and that's to leaders in the community, whichever community they're in. Certainly, as we move forward with our venture, would love to hear more about them. There'll be opportunities for young people to sign up as we start to build. And thirdly, I think obviously there's the usual following socials and everything else, but I think what we try to do is create opportunities for young people to be part of our process. So those labs, those summits, and hackathons that we run on an ongoing basis. So we're promoting those through our channels all the time, and there's opportunities for young people to get involved with Youthful Cities. But I think there's also is to keep on actively looking for opportunities within their city to get involved.
That sounds great. So we're just about at time, and I was wondering if there's anything else you'd like to add before we sign off.
No, this has been great. I mean, I think spent a lot of time in Victoria and South Vancouver Island, and so much promise and potential in that area of the world. And if maybe I'm promoting our stuff again and again and again, but for me, that rising economy is going to come from the ability to really bring young people into that area of the world, and solving that problem also creates long-term sustainability and long-term economic growth for that particular region.
That brings us to the end of today's discussion on youth and cities. I'd like to thank Robert for coming on. Your perspective has shed a lot of light on this critical topic for the region. This segment was brought to you by the Rising Economy Conference presented by South Island Prosperity Partnership. Thank you to our presenting sponsor, RBC, and Catalyst sponsor, Van City. While in-person tickets are sold out for this event, complimentary tickets for the virtual day on March 8th are still available. Go to ourrisingeconomy.com for more details and a recording of this conversation. Thank you and goodbye.